Nebraska Preps Postgame with Damon Benning and Jacob Padilla.
That's the big voice guy, which means I am pretty happy because I get to see my man JP. He's my new texting buddy, and now we actually can continue to do podcasts together. Jacob, how are you?
Good. We're back on our Wednesday schedule now that Nebraska football has its first normal game week of the season.
Does that drive you crazy how you have to just kind of roll with it?
Not really. I mean, I know that's kind of part of the job. And fortunately, I can adjust on the fly pretty easily. I don't have a lot going on.
Hey, I wish when I grow up, can I be like you? Like, that is the American dream. There was so much going on at the high school level, whether it was softball, football's in full swing, recruiting with the September 1st, first time you can contact 2024s, that is in full swing. You've got Nebraska volleyball. There's this other team down the road that plays football at the collegiate level. Like, a couple of big volleyball matches going on this week. It's a lot going on.
Yeah. We are fully into the fall sports season now. Things are starting to ramp up. We're starting, like you mentioned, some big matches or big competitions at every level. And now we get to have some fun and take it all in.
Yeah. So where do you want to start, man? I felt like it was a fairly uneventful week, kind of business as usual. There was only 2 top 10 matchups with Omaha West Side and Grand Island and Elkhorn South and Millard South.
And they both lived up to the hype.
Yeah.
Down to the wire in both games.
So it's a lot going on as we get ready for kind of a sneaky monster week.
Yeah, that's
with high school matchups.
Kind of the pattern we've got. The first week of the season, monster games. Second week, a little bit. Now back to week 3, we got some in A, B, and C, some big matchups, top 5 games type of deal.
Yeah, let's start with the consensus number 1. It was West Side I always want to say they. I feel like I shouldn't be in the deal.
Yeah, but
this is our show.
Yeah,
we can kind of make it up. Right?
You've been there for long enough now.
Yeah.
You're officially part of the deal. You kind of
a little.
People understand like
a very slow start for Omaha West Side as Grand Island got off to a good start. Pick 6. Scored. Very workmanlike. I think this offense it'd have a hard hat and a lot of orange tape, still under construction. Jamez Ross having his first good full speed week of practice.
That's good.
Which will help as we take on Bellevue West. No Teddy Rezac or Caleb Benning on offense last week for Omaha West Side. So it was defensively, though, it's a really, really good football team. Held Grand Island to just under 71 yards. 3 of 12 third down conversions, only had 4 first downs for the game.
It's pretty impressive.
11 punts, 9 of which were returned. I think Caleb had 9 punt returns for 128 yards.
Welcome back.
Right. It was, I asked him, I said, you're not even playing any offense. Why are you tired? But there's a fair amount of punts in that one. I like this Grand Island team because I think they're better than what they showed on Friday night as a testament. They battled North Platte, played them tough. It's not going to be a bad Grand Island team before it's all said and done.
No, they just got a lot of pieces to replace from last year. Guys that were the heart and soul of that team. And now they're trying to find the new guys to step into those roles. But it was a 37-13 final. Like you said, right off the bat, pick 6, part of that scoring there. So really impressive showing by the West Side defense, like you said. You were a little worried about kind of that trip out there, and again taking.
I didn't feel like we didn't handle it very well, and here's the unintended consequence. I think it really forced our staff. We didn't leave West Side until 1:00 Friday night. We got back about 11:10ish, 11:20. Felt like the staff really stayed and said, hey, you know what? These first couple games, we're operating at about 60%. What do we need to do to get the other 40% out of this team? And most of it falls on us as a staff. So really productive. For a 2-0 team that's ranked number 1, we opened up probably 40 or 50% of the jobs this week with having open practice. and not to go all Scott Frost, but I felt like Monday was clearly our best practice, and to have it at 7 o'clock on a Labor Day Monday, I felt like the kids responded because it is open competition
and good time for things to start clicking. And for
we got a tough one, right?
Yeah. Taking on Bellevue West, who Westside's #1 in Mike Sauter's coaches poll. Bellevue West is #2 after a 60-13 beatdown against Omaha Burke. Daniel Kalen, 12 for 18 for 318 yards, 4 touchdowns and a pick. Backup came in and threw for 126 yards on 9 attempts and a score.
Obviously, watching that film, getting ready for huddle, Bellevue West could have named their score.
Yeah.
They were kind of having their way. And, for Burke, one of the larger public schools in Omaha Public Schools, you're hoping that they can get it going. They've got a long way to go, playing a lot of young guys. And enrollment really hurt those guys with the new high school opening up.
Yeah. Guys leaving for Westview and just obviously guys transferring out. Just complete rebuild situation there at Burke, who has been a good program for a long stretch there. So hopefully they can get it back. But man, we talk about the Bellevue West weapons. It seemed Davon Hall and Isaiah Mcmorris have kind of traded off to start the season, kind of leading them off. Well, they both got busy in this game. Hall 6 catches for 171 yards and 4 touchdowns. McMorris 4 catches for 154 yards and a touchdown. Tied state record 99-yard receiving touchdown as part of that. So, good luck to the West Side secondary this week. That'll be a fascinating matchup.
It is. And we're really looking forward to it, just because I think it will be a good challenge. That defensive staff takes a lot of pride on schemes and what we can come up with to slow a very prolific passing game down, and we'll see what happens.
And I think that the respective units have a claim for best in the state potentially, with West Side secondary going against Bellevue West's wide receiver core. So that'll be a fun one for sure.
Yeah, a lot of talent. There will be multiple coaches in attendance for that. Nebraska's even going to double dip and get a couple of their staff members down for that one. So that's going to be a ton of fun.
Yeah. And so that'll be, I'm assuming most people will be there Friday. I think, man, I'll probably be there, but there's some other matchups on Friday too that we'll get to that, like, I was going down the list. I was like, that one's really fun.
Aren't there some, there's some good ones. I mean, even sneaky games like Millard South, Millard North will be good. You've got Gretna Prep, which is, I mean, if anybody's going to get Gretna, Prep may be their last shot at it.
I'll just knock this one out now. The first one that jumped out to me is like, that's interesting. Aurora going to Ashland Greenwood. Down there in C1. Aurora coming off 34-13 win over a good Boone Central team. Carlos Collazo, 257 yards, 4 touchdowns, caught an 11-yard receiving touchdown, had 2 80-yard touchdown runs. Like, man, again, I'll probably end up over at there at Phelps Field, but man, this one really caught my attention when I first started looking at Friday's games.
Yeah, and his 257 might not have even been the single best performance, because Brock Murtaugh from Millard South really solidified what a good athlete he is, filling in for Koziol, putting up monster numbers. I think he was 21 of 37. He threw for 257 or something like that statistically.
I had 17 for 33 for 271 yards and 3 touchdowns.
Leave it to the crack statistician.
Yeah, this was a game I went to. It was a 31-28 win for Elkhorn South. And that game was back and forth the entire way. It was a really good game. I was impressed with Murtaugh. The way he alternated between the drop back passing and then running the option. He also had some drops too as part of that passing. Had 4, 5, 6 drops probably, that his numbers could have been even better. He easily should have had over 300 yards. Not bad for a guy who hasn't played quarterback in a long time.
Yeah, filling in for a guy that
threw for 300 plus last week.
Yeah, and congratulations for him, as he's playing with the national team now in terms of baseball, and USA can be proud of that one.
Yeah. Obviously the Vanderbilt commit, and they knew going in season they were probably going to be without him for a chunk of the season, and they were ready. They were practicing with Brock Murtaugh, taking some snaps at quarterback. Coach Ty Wisdom felt like that would be their best option moving forward, and I think this game proved that he definitely has what it takes to keep them competitive without their quarterback. It's Elkhorn South is a good team now, off to a great start. and they gave him all they could handle, despite not getting much in the running game. They ran the option pretty well, but Elkhorn South, I thought, covered it up. Like, they never gave any big runs off of that. No real breakdowns or anything like that. It was just some big time completions, especially third down. There were some absolute bombs thrown. Got beat deep there, and I like North South freshman Amarion Jackson. 2 catches for 60 yards, had 41-yard bomb down the field. Great catch, and then 2 plays later came back and just nice little touchdown throw over the top.
Hey, a lot of pressure too. His dad, Jay Jackson, not afraid to tell people how good his son is. No pressure there, Marion. You are well on your way. And Jay, he loves being a dad, and he's all in on football. So it's another one of those guys in that 2026 class that's going to be pretty good.
Yeah, and probably the best catch of the day went to Austin Trotter, who finished 5 catches, 103 yards, and score. Deep shot down the field between 2 defenders, went up, pulled it down while being interfered with, and secured it inside the 10 to put North South in scoring range. And he's the guy. He had some drops early on. He was one of those that kind of was responsible for some of those drops, but he bounced back and had some big catches late. He had a 40-yard touchdown throw as part of that. So overall, I came away pretty impressed with Millard South, and also
I liked him in 7-on-7.
Yeah.
I just didn't know enough about their interior.
We'll talk about Elkhorn South. It was a really quiet day for Maverick Noonan, and that's a guy. He had a really nice quarterback pressure, forced an incompletion early on, drilled Murtaugh, and after that, it was pretty quiet though. And I really credit Millard South, their protection scheme, their game plan to take him out of it, because I've seen him single-handedly dominate games time and time again. So I came away impressed with Millard South, but
between the sprint out and the quick game and Murtaugh being pretty elusive, it kind of it doesn't lend itself to straight 5-7 step drop back with his ability to get up the field and rush the passer. It really neutralizes his skill set.
Yeah, and that's we saw Gretna use the quick screen game a ton against Elkhorn South last year, and as a way to try to neutralize Noonan, and even in that with that system, he found a way to make the biggest plays of the game late. So, credit to them. Great game plan to give themselves a chance. But Elkhorn South found a way to get it done. And again, you mentioned Ronner going into the season. He's really changed this team. Like, his ability to make deep passes down the field, add that explosive over the top game to go with Ballard churning out yards underneath. It's a much more well-rounded team than I think we've seen recently. He 10 of 18 for 241 yards and a touchdown. Ballard, just workmanlike effort.
That's 24 yards per completion for those of you mathematicians out there.
He had, some long. Yeah, I think, was it 1, 2, 3, 4, had 5 different receivers catch passes of 30 yards or more. And like that, again, just some spread it around, hit all these different receivers. You had Mower Swan as kind of the possession guy, 4 catches for 60 yards, but then 61-yard bomb to Dylan Kingston, 37-yard pass to Josh. I have no idea how to say that. XIQU East. Yeah, sorry, Josh. Aiden Stratus, 30-yard reception. Luke Hoskinson, 37-yard touchdown. Another Hoskinson.
I was pretty happy for Luke. That's I obviously a little biased to cheer for that family quite a bit. And I've known Luke since he's been a little guy. He can run a little bit too. He's gonna be faster than his
carries
dad.
For 16 yards as well. So they kind of like to mix him in there with some of the jet sweeps and everything. But and then Cole Ballard, just workmanlike, 27 for $122, 3 touchdowns, ripped off a big touchdown, but then also had a couple goal line scores. There's one where he just straight ran up through the defender that was there at the 1-yard line, just bowled him over into the end zone, and didn't even look like he was trying that hard. So that kid is tough.
Yeah. And then, not to skip over number 3, Gretna, we kind of alluded to them. They've got a big one coming up with Prep, as they're outscoring their opponents exactly 100-0.
56-0 win over Omaha Central. And they didn't really have to stress anybody. Everybody got in there, got their few plays done, called the day. Flores 14 for 16, $189, 2 scores. They carried the ball 30 times for 245 yards and 5 touchdowns. We wondered kind of how was that picture going to look without Huber, and Obviously, competition notwithstanding, they're finding ways to get it done with a crew of guys. Weber led the group with 8 carries, 65 yards and a touchdown, but they had a ton of different guys carry the ball in this one.
He really looks the part, doesn't he?
Yeah.
And not short on confidence either. The next 4 or 5 for Gretna, after a little bit of a easy start, will really tell the tale. They got Prep, Millard South, Bellevue East, and Bellevue West, and a surprising undefeated Papio South, a team that I talked about way before this started. The roster is pretty good.
Yeah.
And this is a Papio South team that we'll get to later as we can continue to go in order of the top 10 that will garner some attention.
Yeah, and we mentioned Gretna taking on Prep. That's a team, they got the win that they needed. We talked about last week, Millard North. It's a frisky team, but not necessarily the top echelon team that they have faced the first 2 weeks. And 35-14 win for Prep there. Again, they stuck with Stessman at quarterback, only attempted 7 passes because Trumar Brown, 18 carries, 142 yards, 3 touchdowns, and also a 45-yard receiving touchdown. So standard day for him.
Yeah.
That Prep defense really wreaked havoc. They had 8 tackles for loss, including a couple of sacks. They blocked a field goal. They blocked an extra point, it looked like. They converted or picked off a pass, recovered 2 fumbles. So just kind of a little bit of everything there from the defense.
If you're obviously an objector, you're an innocent bystander. Does the gauntlet of Prep's schedule and how many good teams they've had to play give them an advantage in this monster matchup with Gretna this week, in your opinion?
I think so. Again, they've faced adversity. Gretna hasn't had any of that yet. Like you said, they haven't given up a single point. So they haven't had, hey, we're down a score here. Hey, it's late. We need to go convert this, or we're in trouble here heading into halftime, whatever. And we know how good that
Prep will be playing
is.
their 4th game.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a well-oiled team. Marty Brown's only been held under 100 yards once. And
who was that?
Yeah, that was Omaha West Side. And I tell you, I say that we kind of laugh because I didn't really put 2 and 2 together. But I mean, that was the big takeaway in that one. We were, especially in the first half. I mean, the 25 for 76 yards, like that was one of those things we felt pretty good about.
Yeah.
We want to be able to stop the run, and he's relentless. So I'll be curious to see how that plays out because of the degree of difficulty of Prep's schedule.
Yeah. So again, that's in a normal week. This is probably one I'd circle right off the bat, but I've already seen Prep once at least, and we've got some other really good games to consider. You mentioned last week the only 2 top 10 matchups. The other one was Omaha North and Millard West, and that went down to the wire. Again, the Vikings finding a way to pull out a win. There's a 14-13 win for the Vikings against Millard West there. And we talked about Tayshawn Porter having to leave the game the last week. Bounce
back.
Yeah, bounce back. 30 carries for 255 yards and a touchdown, and also had the go-ahead touchdown with about 3.5 to go on a quarterback pass, or halfback pass rather, to freshman Khalil Davis to give them the lead, and then they held on to get the win there. But
another potential superstar in that 2026 class,
Davis.
Yeah, Champ's a really good player, and one of many young guys that are playing for North. They get a little bit of a break maybe this week as they take on Columbus.
Yeah.
That's a Thursday night game. So anytime you tinker with the schedule, we'll see what happens. It's a home game for North, so the Columbus will get to travel, but that one will be interesting as well.
And good showing by the Wildcats to bounce back after giving up 38 in the rivalry game to Millard South week 2 to give them. I mean, they were up 10-0 to start that game.
Yeah.
So, but good resiliency from Omaha North to not blink, to battle back in and make the big plays on the stretch to win that game.
Yeah, we talked about number 7 Millard South and the hard-fought loss against Elkhorn South.
Yep. And now they are heading to Millard North for another Millard showdown, like you mentioned, on Friday. And shout out to my guy Luke Davis, first touchdown catch against Prep.
Proud basketball coach Jacob Padilla. Shout out to one of his point guards, Luke Davis, who is one of the original tough guys.
Gave him a hard time for not converting his long catch to the end zone.
Wow, tough crowd.
Found a way to score in this one when it's 2 touchdowns for North. But and you mentioned La Vista South easily dispatched their in-town rival there with La Vista 29-3. And again, it's another case where they didn't really have to stress any of their big their key playmakers. Devon Jones, 9 carries. That's it. I mean, he converted him in 95 yards and 2 touchdowns, but relatively easy day for a guy that can be a workout horse for them and has been all season long. So now they head after 3-0 start.
Tough test looming.
Yes, this will be their first real, all right, are you for real? Like, how good are you guys actually? Because right now they're sitting at number 8. Elkhorn South moved up to number 4 in Saturday's coaches poll. So that's again, I've seen a quarter and a half of Elkhorn South against Southeast, and then saw the whole game against Miller South. Probably gonna have to be there again tomorrow night to watch this one. So again, plenty of Elkhorn South, but that's a great matchup on the Thursday night.
Are you reserving judgment considering that Papio South is opened with North Platte, Fremont, and then the Monarchs, or is this kind of what you see is what you get?
Yeah, again, I mean, it's not like they've faced the bottom of the barrel. Like some of those teams, they've somewhat they have some good players in there. At least they'll test you a little bit. But yeah, like I said, this is their first ranked opponent, first real test, facing the top 5 team now. So this is their chance to show, all right, how real are you? So I'm looking forward to seeing this one and kind of how this one plays out.
How about the Kearney Bearcats?
Whew, we said after that first week, like there's something here.
Yeah.
Not sure how long it'll take them to figure it out, but I was impressed with quarterback Trevin Beckman. 49-21 against Fremont. That's not bad. Beckman 9 of 10 passing for 205 yards and 2 touchdowns. Carried the ball 3 times for 32 yards as well. He had a 45-yard touchdown and a 20-yard touchdown. So yeah, I think Kearney's starting to figure some things out. Again, Fremont's they got to figure something out defensively. Offensively, they've been able to move their ball. Again, Hudson Cummings, I mentioned him last week, 13 for 22 for 154 yards and a touchdown and a pick. 16 carries for 146 yards and 2 touchdowns, plus 6 tackles. He's kind of a one-man show right now for Fremont. He needs a little bit of help, but still an impressive showing for Kearney to put up 49 points against that team.
Yeah, and how about how they spread the wealth? I mean, with rushing the football at Kearney, they had 8 guys carry the football. And in a high school football game, that is a substantial amount. 29 carries, 422 yards. Not gaudy in terms of yards per, just a little over 4 yards, but definitely committed. And when you throw it and you're 9 of 10 with 90% completion percentage for those 2 touchdowns, that's pretty doggone efficient.
Yeah. Quickly mention 2 other Class A games here and then we'll move on. Congrats to Benson, 2019 win over Omaha Bryan. Kevon Newsom, 22 tackles and 2 interceptions. That's a heck of a defensive effort for that guy there. And that game went down to the wire. So great job for the Bunnies to get that win. And then we mentioned Kearney, Lincoln East week 1. It's like, wasn't really sure about either of those teams. Lincoln East, 21-14 win over Lincoln Southeast with a 14-0 fourth quarter for the Spartans. They stuck with Jeter Worthley at quarterback there and 18 for 32 for 200 yards through 1 pick, but ran the ball 22 times for 100 yards and all 3 of their touchdowns. So Card Templemeyer, 6 catches, 62 yards, 4 tackles, solid game from him. And again, Malachi Coleman's dealing with kind of the minor injury they picked up week 1. So hopefully he can get back to full strength soon, but it's a good win for East against a Southeast team that was really competitive with Elkhorn South the previous week.
And you look at Southeast at a couple of tough games out of the gate. More of the schedule, or you think that's going to be indicative of they're just going to have to grind?
Yeah, I think so. Owen Baxter's done some interesting things at quarterback. He's been the leading rusher both games, in addition to what he's done passing. But they've got to find, I think, a little bit more success running the ball with Max Butin back. And then defensively, got to be able to make those key stops because they had the lead going in the fourth quarter there and then just got shut out 14-0, gave up 2 touchdowns. So I think they've got some pieces there certainly, but they've got some things to figure out as well.
Yeah, they've got a big one, I think, that they've got to get against the Monarchs of Papillion just to kind of start feeling good about what that program brings to the table, because you go Papillion, North Star, and then Millard North before it sets up a Lincoln battle with Southwest too. I mean, the jury is still out on Southwest, but they're off to a 2-0 start. And as battle of supremacy and Lincoln reigns supreme. It's Lincoln High and Columbus. It was a tough one over Lincoln High, 20-19. I think Southwest won that, but I think you and I both wondered, like, who was going to rise to the top?
Yeah.
Was it East? Was it Southeast? Is this finally the year for Lincoln Southwest? I'm curious to see how that one plays out in the capital city.
Yeah, it'll probably be the winner of that game is the team that we've already again seen East take down Southeast. That is another big one that kind of more under the radar there for Class A.
Let's jump down to B.
Yeah. Anything jump out at you this? Obviously, right off the top, I think
I thought
Scotts Bluff.
I thought that was a good win for North Platte, because
21-14 the final there.
I watched North Platte obviously against Grand Island in the opener, so I'm buried in huddle film, and I'm just kind of taking a look at North Platte. I think that's a game that North Platte probably feels like, they play it again, they probably win that game against Grand Island. That was a good bounce back win for North Platte against what I think is going to ultimately be a pretty good Scotts Bluff team.
Holding Sebastian Boyle to 52 yards on 17 carries. Again, nobody does that. So Braden Stoll had some success on the ground, 92 yards, 15 carries, scored 2 touchdowns. But North Platte ran the ball 40 times for 227 yards and 1 touchdown. Scotts Bluff just couldn't stop them. And then when they loaded up against the run, they had Caden Johnson, quarterback, attempted 5 passes. 2 of them went for touchdowns of 32 and 11 yards. So they were able to kind of catch him sleeping there and hit him for a couple of touchdowns over the air after hammering them throughout the game on the ground, which is what North Platte wants to do to you. And Scotts Bluff couldn't find a way to stop them. But yeah, again, anytime you have B versus A crossover, like Scotts Bluff or North Platte isn't a top 10 Class A team, but it's still a Class A team and it's a good program that knows how to win. So,
and no love lost with the proximity between the two schools either.
Yeah, and now Scotts Bluff heads take on Frederick, another out-of-state team. So we'll see kind of once they cycle back to playing Class B Nebraska teams where they're at. But yeah, 1-1 start for Scotts Bluff, which allowed Bennington to rise back up to number 1 there. They 38-0 shutout against Plattsmouth. Nick Colvert, 16 carries, 142 yards, 2 touchdowns. Also caught a 12-yard touchdown pass. Trey Bird, just kind of quiet day, 118 yards, 2 touchdowns, 46 yards rushing. Didn't really need much out of their guys beyond that. So Bennington, again, impressive start to the season. They lost a lot. They still got a lot back.
Yeah, that is a talented bunch in Bennington. And how about the monster matchup this week with Gross, who I really, really like? Probably the dark horse in B.
And Elkhorn.
As they're taking on Elkhorn, who
another Thursday night game.
Wash, rinse, repeat. That is a huge matchup. It will be on television as your KXVO game of the week if you cannot get out in attendance.
Yeah, 21-7 win for Elkhorn over Norris, and Gross 63-14 over Omaha Westview.
Gross is a good football team.
Jake Garcia, running back, has gotten off to a great start to the season. Elkhorn's going to have to find a way to slow him down, but it's Gross, the team that started to show some things last year. I was impressed with what I saw again. Was it Scott? I think they were on TV one week, and they were competitive in that game early on before it kind of got pulled away late. So so you could see them kind of building up towards this. And again, with B losing a lot of talent from last year, this is their chance to kind of really make a push. And here they are at number 3 in the coaches poll.
And the team to keep an eye on that I was talking about early in the season with Suck Up at quarterback was Blair. They got the forfeit victory, but
Buena Vista.
Can potentially be a tricky game coming up versus Ralston here. So I'll that's one. And if you want to start to stack momentum and build, that's a must win, in my opinion.
Ralston had Mount Michael on the ropes late, and some unfortunate decisions down the stretch allowed the Knights to kind of sneak in and steal that at the last second there. 28-27 win there. But that's where Blair's heading this week after a week off. It's always tough to kind of not get to play when you were anticipating to. We knew going into the season that it would be a bye or a forfeit, but still that's tough. Like these kids want to play, and having to sit around on Friday where all their friends are playing, that's got to be tough. So we'll see. I'm sure they're going to come out fired up to kind of get out there and show what they can do. Scott, the number 6, 21-16 win over Grand Island Northwest, and Scott's, they got some things to figure out. They gave up 400 yards to Northwest quarterback Austin Payne and 2 touchdowns passing, 29 of 43. So they got the win there, but this is a team that Aurora, again, down in C1, just absolutely ran off the field in week 1. So Scott's got some athletes, good coaching staff, obviously, but they're not where they want to be, I would imagine, at this point.
I just think continuity on offense has been hard for them to come by, and they got to shore up the back end, right? They have, I mean, traditionally, they have given up some big passing nights in terms of statistical yardage. Ron Colley comes to mind a couple of years ago, and where they will concede some things as long as they're not giving up points. But you're right. I think defensively, there's definitely some things they got to tighten up there.
Yeah. Last Class B result I'll mention here before we wrap this thing up is Waverly 28-21 win at Beatrice. And I think Waverly's kind of leaning into what they need to be with the personnel this year compared to last year. Trey Jackson, 17 for 25 for 266 yards and a touchdown, with Preston Harms being the primary recipient there, 6 catches for 152 yards and a score. Jackson's a guy that can swing it. Obviously, last year, they had Cole Murray there, quarterback, much more of a runner. They had a host of guys to carry the ball in that option attack. A little bit different here. Trey's a pure passing player, and he can sling it. So we'll see kind of how Waverly continues to develop as the season goes on there at number 8.
Ton of great matchups. A couple of Thursday night games to whet your palate if you feel like you're going to be torn. Double dip. Go on out and support high school. A lot of monster matchups with Gretna and Prep and Bellevue West and West Side. And, Elkhorn South's like, hey, we're here. Believe me, you got the Metro's attention. That's it. That's a good football team.
Yeah. We'll be back to wrap it all up again next week.
Yep. That's Jacob Padilla. I'm Old DB. That's another edition of Nebraska Preps Postgame.